My deadbeat dad and his evil wife tried to force me out of my own house just to hand it to my broke, pregnant stepsister. When I said no, they tried to steal it anyway. I'm 34 now, and my father, he's 62, has always been tight with money, full of himself, and rarely around. But the moment he found out how much I'm making these days, it's like a switch flipped. Suddenly, he wants to play family. And by that, I mean he wants to take my house and hand it off to Riley like I'm just some placeholder in her Cinderella story. Riley, short for Riley, is 29 and, in Dad's eyes, can do no wrong. She's the apple of his eye, even though she spends more time trying to be a discount internet celebrity than building anything real. Her dreams? Escort work and a barely breathing OnlyFans page. Not exactly a 5-year plan. So here we are. Dad's got this idea in his head that I should sacrifice everything I've worked for just because Riley made some poor life choices. And let's be real, he's never once acted like I was his responsibility. The same man who kept pushing me away now wants me to bail out his real family. Lately, since hearing about my house, my job, and the paycheck that comes with it, he's been real sentimental about us sharing the same blood. He keeps talking about how I should strengthen the bond with his wife and her daughter, as if they ever made me feel like I belonged. Yeah, Riley is technically my half-sister, but I was shipped off so young, we might as well be strangers. Honestly, that's a blessing. Knowing what I know now, I'd be crushed if I had ever gotten close to her. Now, before anyone jumps down my throat, let me make something clear, this isn't about getting pity. I'm just getting this off my chest because I have no one else to talk to. You don't have to agree with me, but this is how I feel. And I need to say it somewhere. So here's the full intro. Riley, my half-sister, is about 5 years younger than me. And I swear, she could be doing anything in the world, but she's out there making Dad proud by, well, selling herself. I'm not saying that to be mean, it's just the truth. She's bouncing from guy to guy, peddling her body online, and clinging to a career that doesn't seem to be paying the bills. But Dad? He calls her his pride and joy. Maybe he doesn't know what she's really up to, or maybe he just doesn't care. Either way, someone's gonna have to burst that bubble eventually. Now, I'm not some uptight guy. I'm not super traditional or anything, but I try to live with some kind of moral compass. I work hard, I focus on building my future, and when I date, I do it with intention. I don't hook up just to hook up. If I'm seeing someone, it's because I want to actually get to know them. That whole high body count thing doesn't sit right with me. I don't get why some guys wear it like a badge of honor. It honestly grosses me out. That's just how I am. But Riley? She's the total opposite. I doubt even she remembers how many guys she's been with at this point. On top of all that, she's working as an escort. And look, beyond how I personally feel about it, that job's dangerous. You don't know what kind of creeps are out there. Some of these men aren't just looking for a good time, they're looking to hurt someone. And then there's her whole OnlyFans side hustle. She posts all kinds of explicit stuff hoping to make a buck, but from what I hear, it's not going too well. Probably because she doesn't know how to promote herself. Or maybe the internet just isn't interested. Either way, it's a flop. You wanna know how I found out? This is where it gets awkward. A buddy of mine, yeah, a friend, told me Riley had messaged him after they grabbed drinks once. She asked if he was looking for fun. At first, I was pissed. The guy went out with my sister? But he swore he didn't know we were related. He even showed me the message thread, and the link to her page. She's constantly broke and always hitting Dad up for money, so clearly, her business ventures aren't paying off. I've never had the guts to ask her directly, and I definitely haven't told Dad. Once, I saw her take a phone call, then hop into a car with some old dude who brought her flowers. They drove off together. Later that night, she crawled back into the house through the window, like something out of a bad teen drama. I used to notice that stuff when I came home from college on break. I don't know if she's still doing it, but whatever it is, I want no part of it. I've worked hard to build a life I'm proud of. I've got a solid job now, one that actually gives me some respect. Growing up, I didn't really live with this new family of dads for long. He sent me away every chance he got. But I saw enough of Riley to know she's her mother's daughter. Jenna, my stepmom, is 58 now. Back in her heyday, she was a flight attendant and caught the eye of guys like my dad, smooth talkers with wandering hands. These days, she's more of a walking cosmetic experiment gone wrong. Nails like daggers, face full of Botox, and somehow she runs a daycare? I don't know what kind of parent leaves their kid with Cruella de Vil, but hey, people do. Those talon nails of hers could poke a kid's eye out, and her personality's even sharper. Always butting in, always judging, always stirring the pot. Her voice could crack glass, and I swear there's more plastic in her body than in the Pacific Ocean. She's as fake as they come, and she's been dragging my dad down for years. I truly believe she's the one who convinced him to pack me off to boarding school when I was 8. She didn't want to raise a kid that wasn't hers, so off I went. And let's be honest here, Dad. He's the root of the whole mess. He walks around acting like every decision he's ever made was right just because he's older and been through life. He even once told me he regretted having me because I didn't turn out like him. Honestly? Thank God for that. My mom, on the other hand, was a strong woman. She had her head on straight. Took care of him better than he ever deserved. But things fell apart. She used to tell me that Dad wasn't evil, just different. That no matter what happened, he'd always be my father, and I shouldn't forget that. She never tried to turn me against him, even though she must have been hurting. They got divorced when I was 4. Just a few months later, Dad married Jenna. Riley was born around the time I turned 5. And then, my world broke apart. My mom died in a car crash on her way to pick me up from school. She was never late. Not once. That day, she was just 10 minutes behind. Felt like an hour. That 10 minutes changed everything. A drunk driver ran a red light. He survived. She didn't. He got a slap on the wrist DUI a few years later. And I was left completely alone. I remember sitting at school that day, just waiting. 2 whole hours passed before anyone showed up. And when Dad finally came, I was more confused than anything. What hit me hardest wasn't the wait, it was the way he looked at Jenna with that cold, irritated stare and asked her what they were supposed to do with me. And her answer? Your kid, your problem. Fast forward to now, and this same man has the nerve to tell me I'm supposed to step up and take care of his kid, Riley. Really? After all this time? I've finally got my life on track. I've got a stable job, I run a couple small businesses on the side, and I've been grinding since I was 15. I started earning back then and never looked back. After they shipped me off to boarding school, I made it to college, only coming home for the holidays. Basically, I've been on my own since I was 8 years old. And it wasn't easy. I fought for every bit of progress I made. A few months ago, I finally hit a milestone I never thought I'd reach. I bought my first house. Nothing crazy, but it's cozy. Way better than the cramped apartment I used to share with roommates. Even though my relationship with my family is strained, to say the least, I figured they still deserved a seat at the table for a big moment like this. So, I invited them to the housewarming. Looking back, maybe I shouldn't have. Dad didn't exactly look proud. Envious, maybe. A little bitter. He kept asking about the furniture, the layout, the interior designer, like he was fishing for something to mock. I gave him simple answers, but he twisted them into digs. You never told me anything, he said, loud enough for my guests, including my boss, to hear. A week went by, and then I got a call from him while I was knee-deep in a major project at work. He said it was urgent, so I agreed to meet. I came home to find Jenna looking like she'd swallowed a lemon, and Riley sitting there with puffy red eyes, giving me a cold glare. Dad was in the kitchen, grabbing beers like it was just another Tuesday. He offered me one, I passed. Trying to keep it civil, I asked him what was so urgent. He raised an eyebrow and shot back, "So, you finally care about us now?" That stopped me. I had no idea what he was trying to say. He motioned toward the living room, told me to join Jenna and Riley. I walked over and sat across from them. Riley had her arms crossed. Jenna rolled her eyes like she was already bored of the conversation. Dad joined them, sat down with a beer in hand, leaned back, and asked, "Are you blind?" I stared at him, totally lost. Then he said maybe I wasn't blind, maybe I just refused to see what was right in front of me. He told me I'd gotten so full of myself with this new house that I stopped caring about the people who really matter. I told him to cut to the chase. Enough with the riddles. He scoffed and said I was ignoring a crisis in the family, choosing to look the other way when I should have been stepping up. I asked what the hell he was even talking about. He looked at Riley. She let out an exaggerated sigh and said flatly, "I'm pregnant." Now, my first instinct was to say congratulations. But before I could even open my mouth, she started crying. Jenna jumped in, holding her like it was some tragic scene from a soap opera, and told me I should have known what was going on at home. That I should have cared enough to ask. Dad explained that Riley had just found out she was pregnant, and the guy responsible took off as soon as he heard. Jenna chimed in again, saying Riley decided to keep the baby, and that was the foundation we were supposed to build every decision on now. All I asked, calmly, was, "Can she afford to?" "You'd think I kicked a puppy." Both of them glared at me like I'd insulted their ancestors. But come on, that was a fair question. In my mind, I figured they were working up to asking me for money, and honestly, I was open to helping. A little, at least. But then Dad moved closer, sat beside me, and said, "That's exactly why I called you." Then he said something that floored me. He told me he's a good father to his daughter. That maybe my mom didn't teach me how to be a decent brother, but a real brother would give up everything for his sister's comfort. Hold on a second. Give my life away? I asked him, straight up, what he wanted from me. He smiled, patted my back like he'd just given me a pep talk, and said, "That's my good boy." Then he dropped the bomb, "You're giving your house to Riley." I blinked. "No, I'm not." "Yes," he insisted. "Absolutely not," I said again. He frowned, like I was the crazy one, and asked why not. I told him flat out, I'm willing to offer some financial help, maybe even let her crash in a spare room for a bit, but the house is mine. End of story. Dad stood up, called it nonsense. Said I was being unreasonable. I disagreed. He wasn't done though. He said not only should I hand over the house, but I also needed to move out and go buy another place for myself. Like it was no big deal. I asked him how Riley was supposed to manage a whole house, bills, upkeep, everything, when she's pregnant and unemployed. He just looked me dead in the eye and said, "That's your responsibility too." What? Absolutely not. I stood up, keeping my cool as best I could, and told him I wasn't doing that. Then I walked out. But that wasn't the end of it. A week later, I came home from work and saw movers outside, carting boxes full of my stuff out of my house. I rushed over and asked what the hell was going on. They told me the owner had ordered them to move everything out. "I'm the owner," I snapped. "Put everything back." I was fuming. I barged inside and found Dad and Riley standing there like they belonged, telling me this is what brothers do. That this is what family does. I told them to leave. They refused. So I said I'd call the cops. That finally got them moving. They didn't leave quietly, though. They cussed me out on the way out the door like I was the villain in all this. And here's the thing, it's been a week since then, and yeah, part of me feels guilty. That's why I'm even posting this. Maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe they really do need me. But I also think, there's a line. And I'm not okay crossing it. So, was I wrong? I don't know. I feel torn. I grew up feeling like I didn't matter, like I was in the way. And now, suddenly, I'm supposed to lay my whole life down for people who never gave a damn about me? Kinda feels like too much to ask, don't you think? What really gets under my skin is how checked out they were during my entire childhood, like I wasn't even there. And now? Now they expect me to flip my whole life upside down for them. Come on, that's a bit much, don't you think? Honestly, I haven't told any of my friends about this. I can't. It's just too messy. So it's really just you all, strangers on the internet, who I can talk to. Sounds sad, but it's true. Update time. Hey, folks. I hope you're doing alright. It's been about a week since I shared everything, and I didn't expect it to blow up like it did. I read the comments, every single one that came in. Some made me think harder about my choices, others made me feel validated, I guess. Eventually, I decided not to cut my family off completely. Mostly because Riley called me. She wanted to meet and talk. She asked if we could meet at my place, but after the circus they pulled last time, I wasn't about to open that door again. I told her we'd meet somewhere public. We ended up at a little coffee shop. Right from the start, she looked uneasy. And that threw me, because normally she's all attitude and sharp edges. But that day? She looked softer. Nervous even. We sat in a quiet corner, and she told me she'd been recently dumped. I told her, yeah, I figured. Dad had already mentioned the guy bailed when he found out she was pregnant. But Riley shook her head and said, that's what Dad thinks. Naturally, I asked her what the real story was. And then she dropped the first bomb. She said the guy didn't leave because he had commitment issues, she did. Yep. Apparently, he'd found out about a few things she'd been keeping from him, just a few days before she broke the baby news. They met up to talk, and he came in ready to confront her. But she beat him to it, told him about the pregnancy before he could bring up what he knew. That just pushed him over the edge. She said he got angry. Punched a hole in the wall. Scared her. Then walked out and didn't look back. No response, no conversation. Nothing. Since then, she's been calling him non-stop, but he's ghosted her. Only one text came through from him. It said if she got rid of the baby, he might talk to her again. Maybe. Yeah. That's the kind of guy we're dealing with. Look, I'm not saying Riley is perfect, far from it, but this dude? He's trash. I asked her what exactly he found out. She glanced away and said it'd be weird telling her brother that kind of stuff. I put two and two together, had to be about the escorting, the OnlyFans, all that. I just nodded and told her she didn't have to explain. Before I could say anything else, she took a deep breath and dove in. Told me the truth. All of it. Turns out, back in the day, she wanted to be a painter. She loved art. But Jenna, of course it was Jenna, shot that dream down. Said art wouldn't make her a dime. Told her she needed to find herself a man. Preferably one with a fat wallet. Not long after that, older men started showing her attention. It creeped her out at first, but when she told Jenna, guess what she said? That it was a good thing. Said older guys knew how to handle money, and spend it. Riley was only 19 when this all started. According to Jenna, college wasn't gonna get her anywhere. But her youth? That was valuable. Riley decided she wanted to be a model instead. She gave it a real shot, went to agency after agency, but no one picked her up. Then she met this guy in his 40s who said he could get her gigs. He took her to parties, bought her expensive dresses and jewelry. At first, she thought she was finally getting somewhere. Until he told her what her first gig really was. It wasn't just dinner. It was a night. And yeah, she went through with it. She did get a small modeling job after that. Photo shoot for a minor brand. But that was the end of the line. A few more guys came along, each one promising more modeling work in exchange for her time, but nothing came of it. She later figured out that this guy who was investing in her was actually pimping her out. Making money off her. She was too scared to confront him. Thought he might hurt her, or worse. So she told him she was done with modeling and was okay settling for minimum wage jobs. Luckily, he let her walk away without a fight. So she started waiting tables at bars. Real work. Hard work. Something I've been doing since I was 15. But Jenna? She couldn't handle the thought of her daughter bussing tables. Humiliated her for it. Kept saying women are supposed to be beautiful, delicate things, meant to smile, shine, and be admired. Not serve food. So Riley started going out with lonely men for dinner, charging them for company. Just conversation. No touching. But even that turned sideways. Some of those men got creepy. Stalkerish. Thought they were owed more. One guy even tried to follow her home. That's when she decided emotional connections were messier than just sleeping with them. So she started escorting. It actually worked, for a while, until a friend introduced her to OnlyFans. She figured she'd try her luck. But she didn't have the tech skills, or the social savvy, to make it work. Her content didn't take off. Then she ran into a guy she used to work with at a cafe. They reconnected. Started dating. She liked him, said he was kind, a little too clingy, maybe, and a bit possessive. And, to be fair, he had every reason not to trust her. Because she was still escorting. And still doing OnlyFans. Without telling him. Eventually, she stopped both, for him. And he took care of her, helped her out with whatever little money he had. Jenna hated that. But then Riley got pregnant. And everything came crashing down. The boyfriend found out the whole truth. She said there are a few guys who could be the father. Yeah. A few. And they all think they're the only one. They each send her money. One even proposed. She doesn't tell them the truth, of course. Because if they knew, the money would stop. And with a baby on the way, she figures she can't afford to be honest. Riley told me everything because she felt like she couldn't tell Dad the truth. As far as he's concerned, she's been out here trying to make it as a model, struggling to earn a living, and was just unlucky with one guy who bailed on her when she needed him most. Jenna, of course, knows most of the real story. And her brilliant advice? Marry the guy who proposed and let him believe he's the father. Riley isn't on board, though. She says the guy's weird, old, and she doesn't want to live a lie. Fair enough. So I asked her, what exactly do you want from me? She said a little financial help would go a long way. But more than that, she wanted me to patch things up with Dad. Her grand plan? I agree to what he wants, move out of my house for a while, let them settle in, and come back once things cool down. Cool down? That's not a solution, that's a setup. I told her no. I said I could help with some money if she needed it, but I'm not moving out of my own damn house. That's where I drew the line. And that's when she snapped. Said I was selfish. Said she just laid her whole life bare in front of me, exposed everything, and I didn't even have enough decency to help her out. She told me Dad was right about me. That I should have been dumped at an orphanage instead of ever being taken in. Then she got up and stormed out. I sat there, feeling like I'd been hit with something heavy. I don't think I overreacted, but was I being selfish? Is that what this is? I'm trying to see it from her side. I really am. And maybe she was being honest. But does that mean I should do what she's asking? That question's been living in my head rent-free all week. So here I am again. Updating y'all. Thanks for all the support, by the way. For once, it feels like someone out there gets me. Anyway, not long after that meeting with Riley, I got a call from Dad. Said he wanted to meet up, talk things through. I agreed, curious what he had to say. We met at a bar. We sat down at the counter, and first thing out of his mouth was, "I know how much you're earning now." I just looked at him and asked, "Why does that even matter?" He said he figured I could afford to buy another house in a few years. I told him straight, I already have a house. This whole conversation, it needs to end. But he kept pushing. Said I don't have a family yet, and it's tougher for women to raise a child alone. That baby needs a place to grow up and feel safe. I reminded him that Riley has been living with them this whole time, and that seemed to be working just fine. A baby isn't going to suddenly change that. And besides, how is she supposed to take care of a whole house by herself while pregnant? She needs support, not isolation. That's when he hit me with the next bombshell. Said he and Jenna were planning to move in with her. Into my house. I honestly thought I misheard him. Before I could say anything, the bartender nearby let out this sarcastic little laugh. Dad didn't like that. He turned to him and asked what was so funny. The bartender looked right at him and said, "Riley." Then came the twist, right out of a TV drama. The bartender? He was her boyfriend. Yeah. That guy. Dad tensed up, clenched his fists, and asked why the hell he started something he couldn't finish. The bartender held up his hands and said, "Whoa, I'm not responsible for that family. And I'm definitely not raising a kid that isn't mine." Dad fired back, wanted to know how he could be so sure it wasn't his. The guy just smiled and calmly said, "Because I had a vasectomy last year." That shut Dad right up. He went on to explain how he saw Riley sneaking around, getting into different cars, disappearing with different men. How he found out about her OnlyFans and everything else. He said he wanted to believe her when she told him about the baby, but that was the final straw. He physically couldn't have kids. That confirmed everything. He told Riley straight up, he knew she'd been cheating on him, and he was done. Told Dad she didn't just owe him the truth. She owed him money, time, trust, and basic human decency. Said if Dad really knew the whole story, he wouldn't be calling her his pride. I sat there, watching Dad's face shift, from rage to realization to plain old defeat. He didn't say a word. Just got up and walked away. Later that night, he texted me. Said he was heading out to pick Jenna up from her yoga class. Yeah. Yoga. Next morning, Riley showed up at my door, tears rolling down her face. She was shaking, said I'd ruined everything. I pulled her inside to calm her down. Told her I hadn't said a word to Dad, that her boyfriend just happened to be the bartender at the bar we met at. She finally exhaled and said that after Dad got home, he'd confronted her. Told her he was disgusted. Said he couldn't believe she'd lowered herself like that. Told her to stop everything, stay home, and try to find a good man, though he made it clear that her chances of that were slim now. I listened quietly and gave her a hug. She apologized for thinking I sold her out. Said she just assumed, since Dad came back from meeting me right before everything blew up. I forgave her, and she went home. But while she was venting, she mentioned something else, said Jenna was suspiciously quiet while Dad was talking about loyalty and good women. Like she had no room to talk. I asked her what that meant. Riley looked at me and said, "Because Jenna is yoga." I blinked. What? She didn't explain. Just kept crying and rambling. But that word, yoga, stuck with me. Something about it didn't sit right. What do you think really happened? Is Riley still gonna be Dad's pride after this? Nobody's reached out to me since then, but I have a feeling there's more to come. I'll keep y'all posted. And hey, I know you probably didn't expect me back here so soon, but I've got more. 2 days after that last update, something big happened. And yeah, it's about Dad. And me. And the kid. So I told Dad I'd let Riley stay in one of the spare rooms if she needed it. I even said I'd cover things like diapers and baby supplies. But I made it clear, she needed to get a job as soon as she could. No handouts, just a temporary helping hand. Dad just stared at me and said, "Then who's gonna be with the baby?" I suggested she look into remote work, maybe try freelancing, something she could do from home. And you know what? For once, he wasn't combative. He just sat down, let out a long sigh, and looked tired in a way I hadn't seen before. Then he said something I didn't expect, "I always thought you hated me." He wasn't wrong. But I asked him why he thought that. He said it's because Mom hated him too. I jumped in right away. Told him she never said that. She actually used to tell me that he loved me and cared, even if he didn't always show it. What disappointed me wasn't who he was, it was realizing that the version of him Mom painted didn't match what I actually got. He rubbed his face like the weight of everything was hitting him all at once. Said he hated himself for a lot of things. Said he liked my mom, but they didn't really know each other well when they got married. She got pregnant, and he felt obligated to do the right thing. She was a good wife, he said. But I never felt that spark. Then came the part one wasn't ready for. He told me he met Jenna and everything changed. Said she lit a fire in him he didn't even know was there. And before he could figure out what was right or wrong, Jenna was pregnant too. He told her it was wrong, tried to hit pause on everything, but it was too late. She was having his child. He asked her to wait so he could talk to Mom first. But Jenna, being Jenna, got impatient. She showed up at our house and spilled the truth. Mom confronted him. And instead of drama, she kept her dignity. She just asked for a divorce. So yeah, turns out my dad cheated on my mom, got his side woman pregnant, and that's how our family fell apart. He looked over at me like he was finally trying to face what he did. Said that after Mom died, he had to bring me home. But Jenna hated it. She didn't like having me around. She thought Dad might start caring more about me than their daughter. So, to avoid conflict, he packed me off to boarding school when I was 11. That way, I wouldn't be around long enough to mess up their little family picture. Love makes you do stupid things, he said. Man, I wanted to deck him right then and there. But I didn't. I held it in. Then I turned around, and there was Jenna, standing in the doorway with a water bottle like she'd just walked into a casual conversation about groceries. She said she was off to yoga, dropped the bottle on the table, and went into the kitchen. A few seconds later, she was out the door. Something didn't sit right. So I picked up the bottle, walked outside, and saw her already in her car, driving off. I needed air, needed to clear my head. So I followed her. She pulled up to a yoga studio, got out, looked around like she was checking for tails, then slipped into an alley. Next thing I know, she's hopping into a different car. And not just casually either, she hugged the driver, kissed him on the lips, and they drove off together. I was frozen. Couldn't believe what I'd just seen. Eventually, I pulled myself together, parked, and went into the yoga studio. Asked the front desk if Jenna was checked in. They said they couldn't share personal info. I said I was worried about her, told them I just needed to know if she was in the building. They told me they didn't have anyone by that name in their system. I went back to my car and waited. And I don't know what came over me, but when that car rolled back in, I hit record on my phone. The guy got out, opened her door, kissed her again, and gave her a little smack on the butt like they were teenagers. She laughed and walked toward the parking lot, glowing. Yeah. Real spiritual yoga session, huh, Jenna? I didn't say anything. I didn't even confront her. I just left. And all I could think was, my dad cheated on my mom, and now he's being cheated on, too. That's karma for you. He's been calling me ever since, but I haven't picked up. I'm still figuring out what to do. Update time. Okay, this might be the last one, I'm not sure yet. I know it's been a week and some of y'all were expecting this sooner, but trust me, a lot has happened. So, I finally decided to confront Jenna. I waited until Dad was out, and Riley was asleep. I found her in the kitchen making pasta. I asked her if she had yoga that day. She said, of course, I go every day, even Sundays. I asked who her instructor was. She tossed out some random name like it meant nothing. Then I asked if her instructor was a guy. She laughed and said, no. Why would I choose a man? That's when I hit her with it. I told her the studio she supposedly went to didn't even have any female instructors. She froze. Her voice cracked a little and she stopped stirring the sauce. I told her I knew because I'd joined the place the day before. Her eyes narrowed. "How'd you know where I go?" she asked. I told her the truth. I followed her last time I was here. She dropped the spoon. I picked it up and handed it back. Then she looked me dead in the eye and asked, "What are you getting at?" So I laid it out. Everything I saw. She denied it, obviously. Said I was mistaken. I told her I wasn't guessing, I saw it with my own 2 eyes. And if she didn't believe me, maybe Dad would. Then I pulled out my phone and showed her the video. She didn't say a word for a full minute. Just stood there in shock. Then her whole face shifted, like she decided she didn't care anymore. She went back to stirring the sauce like nothing happened. "It doesn't matter," she said. "I was planning to divorce him anyway." I just stood there, stunned. Yeah, Dad might deserve a whole lot of what he gets, but this woman? She's a snake. She told me the man she was meeting had been her lover for the past 3 years. Said they were in love way before she met Dad, but the guy was married back then. His wife's father was his boss, so he stayed put to secure his future. But eventually, Jenna got pregnant. So she panicked. She needed a man to latch onto, someone who could take care of her. That's when she turned to Dad. She and the other guy had been on and off, but the moment she found out she was pregnant, she chose the safer option. Told Dad he had to step up. She told me that when her lover started dragging his feet, scared of the fallout, she took matters into her own hands. That's when she went straight to my mom and laid everything out. Full confession. Now that the guy's a widower and owns a business, she figures she's back in the clear. Says she's good to go. Then she turned to me with this smug little smile and said, "Women do what they have to, kid." But before I could even process that mess of a quote, her face changed. Smile vanished. Her eyes froze on something behind me. I turned around, and there was Dad, standing in the doorway. His fists were clenched so tight they were turning red. His eyes were bloodshot. And he was shaking. Well, that escalated quickly. He didn't say a word at first. He just left the room and came back a minute later, this time with Riley. Still groggy, half asleep, barefoot in the kitchen. He looked her in the eye and asked, "Who's your father?" Riley looked over at Jenna. There was this long pause. Then she turned back to Dad and said, "I don't care about blood. You've always been my dad." He didn't respond. Just dragged his hand through his hair and started pacing the kitchen like he didn't know where to land. 2 days later, he asked both Jenna and Riley to pack their things and leave. Divorce papers? Already in motion. From what I've heard, they're staying at a shelter for now. Dad's been different since. Quieter. Softer. He asked me if I could help him find a therapist. He's been apologizing more than I ever thought possible from him. And you know what? I've been forgiving him. Every time. I don't know why. Maybe because I saw, for once, he was actually sorry. As for Jenna? Her fancy rich lover wants nothing to do with her now. He completely ghosted her, denies they ever even had a thing. She's been calling me, texting, begging me to delete the video. Pleading with me to think about Riley and her pregnancy. Telling me this isn't about her anymore, it's about the baby. But I'm sitting here thinking, that was never my problem to begin with. So now I've got this decision to make: keep the video? Delete it? Let her burn? Or let her start over? What would you do? Let me know in the comments. And thank you, seriously, for sticking around, reading, and reminding me I'm not alone in this. Your support means more than you know.